Wired indicates that the White House has seemingly instructed federal employees to implement Grok as soon as possible. Additionally, South Korea's exports increased by 1.3% compared to the previous year in August, driven by strong demand for chips, according to data. Wired indicates that the White House has seemingly instructed federal employees to implement Grok as soon as possible. Additionally, South Korea's exports increased by 1.3% compared to the previous year in August, driven by strong demand for chips, according to data. Furthermore, Nvidia's two most enigmatic customers accounted for 39% of the chip maker's revenue in the second quarter.
The Trump administration is taking steps to reduce the length of visas for students and media personnel. Preliminary data indicates that approximately 1.2 million immigrants have left the U.S. labor force during Trump's tenure. Additionally, Trump has announced his intention to mandate a voter ID requirement for every vote. Hidden rhythms between your stomach and brain could influence your mood. In a warmer world, certain individuals experience accelerated aging, according to researchers. Humans breathe in up to 68,000 microplastic particles each day, as revealed by a study.
Tesla initially claimed it lacked crucial information regarding a deadly accident, but a hacker subsequently discovered it. According to Reuters, Stellantis has decided to put its Level 3 driver assistance program on hold and reduce its software development goals, as indicated by sources. Additionally, Microsoft Word has been updated to automatically save newly created documents to the cloud. A study conducted by Stanford University has found that the adoption of artificial intelligence is associated with a 13% reduction in employment opportunities for young workers in the United States. In the UK, trade unions are advocating for a strategy that prioritizes the needs of workers in the face of AI advancements, as there is growing concern about job security. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has promised to take retaliatory measures if Europe's digital independence is threatened.
FTC chair claims Gmail engages in partisan filtering. Google defends spam filters as non-ideological. In the United States, Republicans launch an investigation into Wikipedia, citing allegations of systematic bias. Zuckerberg urged Trump to address digital taxes prior to his tariff promise.
4chan and Kiwi Farms have initiated legal action against the United Kingdom concerning its legislation on age verification. Meanwhile, Apple has cautioned the UK about the potential consequences of implementing stricter regulations on technology. Additionally, Google is aiming to enhance the security of side-loading Android applications by ensuring that the identities of developers are verified.
Human interaction with the natural world has decreased by 60% over the span of 2 centuries, according to a recent study, as the vocabulary people use to describe nature is disappearing, as another study reveals. Additionally, deforestation has resulted in the death of 500,000 individuals over the last 2 decades, as found in a separate study. Furthermore, air pollution stemming from oil and gas industries leads to 90,000 premature deaths annually in the United States, as indicated by a new study.
Anthropic reaches a settlement in a class action lawsuit filed by authors in the United States, who claim that their copyrights were violated. Media organizations in Japan have initiated a lawsuit against the AI-powered search engine Perplexity, alleging that it has infringed upon their copyrights. Will Smith has been accused of employing artificial intelligence to fabricate a crowd in footage of a concert performance.
The percentage of Americans engaging in reading for enjoyment has decreased by 40% over the span of 2 decades. South Korea plans to prohibit the use of mobile phones in school classrooms. A study reveals that young children diagnosed with ADHD are frequently given medication at an accelerated rate.
A German court has ordered Cupertino to cease referring to Apple Watches as carbon neutral. South Australia is set to become the first global location to prohibit the use of soy sauce in fish-shaped containers. India has entered into an agreement with Japan to acquire low-carbon technologies.
Stock exchanges are calling on regulators to take stricter action against tokenized stocks. El Salvador has moved its Bitcoin reserve into several wallets to minimize the risk of quantum attacks. A PayPal error has caused turmoil, leading European banks to halt billions in transactions.
Meta modifies the responses of its AI chatbot for teenagers as the Senate initiates an investigation into romantic dialogues. According to a previous report by Reuters, Meta developed flirtatious chatbots featuring Taylor Swift and other celebrities without obtaining their consent. Meanwhile, OpenAI announces that it is reviewing users' ChatGPT interactions and notifying law enforcement of any concerning content. Additionally, Anthropic plans to commence the training of its AI models using chat transcripts.
WhatsApp addresses a zero-click vulnerability exploited to infiltrate Apple users with spyware. The FBI issues an alert about the expansion of a Chinese hacking campaign, now impacting 80 nations. TikTok, owned by ByteDance, halts its live streaming feature in Indonesia amid escalating protests, which have turned violent against elite governance, resulting in the looting of the Indonesian finance minister's residence as unrest intensifies. Indonesia's leader announces he will concede to certain protester demands following riots.
European leaders are expressing anger following Russian attacks that resulted in 23 deaths and caused damage to the EU's headquarters. The European Union is reportedly formulating detailed strategies to deploy troops to Ukraine, according to the EU chief. Additionally, EU head von der Leyen's aircraft experienced a suspected Russian GPS disruption upon landing on Sunday, as reported by the Financial Times. Meanwhile, Denmark has called in the U.S. ambassador to address allegations of covert American influence operations in Greenland. Furthermore, Donald Trump allegedly suggested the deployment of Chinese peacekeepers to Ukraine, and The Washington Post reports that Trump and Gabbard dismissed the top CIA expert on Russia shortly after an Alaska summit. Xi Jinping pledges £1 billion in loans to support the establishment of a development bank by the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO. 5 days prior, Donald Trump imposed a 50% tariff on India as a consequence of its purchase of Russian oil. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed to Xi Jinping his commitment to strengthening relations with China ahead of the SCO meeting. Bloomberg suggests that, despite their rivalry, China and India currently require each other's cooperation. The BBC reports that both China and India have vowed to be partners rather than rivals. A U.S. appeals court has ruled that most of Trump's tariffs are illegal, a point previously highlighted by Besant, who cautioned about the potential embarrassment for the U.S. if these tariffs were deemed unlawful. The NY Times remarks that India once served as an economic alternative to China, a role that Trump's policies have disrupted.
Europeans initiate the United Nations sanctions procedure against Iran, which provokes anger from Tehran. The United States plans to refuse visas to Palestinian leaders in advance of a United Nations gathering. A judge has decided that the lawsuit filed by the victims of September 11 against the Saudi government is eligible to proceed to trial. The U.S. Navy is organizing its own boat parade in support of Trump, following the lackluster reception of his Army parade, according to a report. Trump has urged for racketeering charges to be filed against a prominent Democratic donor and his son. A recent study reveals that billionaires have a lower tax rate compared to the majority of American taxpayers. Uber India begins providing drivers with opportunities to gather and categorize data for AI models. Renowned computer scientist Geoffrey Hinton warns that artificial intelligence will significantly enrich a small number of individuals while impoverishing the majority, as he describes the technology as a catalyst for substantial unemployment and increased profits, which he attributes to the capitalist system. A Wall Street Journal NORC poll reveals that Americans are losing confidence in the belief that diligent work results in economic advancement.
In Switzerland, the CSCS has unveiled Apertus, marking the country's inaugural large-scale open, multilingual language model, representing a significant advancement in generative AI with a focus on transparency and diversity. This model has been trained on an impressive 15 trillion tokens spanning over 1,000 languages, with 40% of the dataset being non-English. Alibaba has introduced its largest AI model to date, aiming to compete with industry giants like OpenAI and Google DeepMind. Uber and Momenta are set to conduct trials of fully autonomous vehicles in Germany.
SCMP remarks that India's short-sighted approach to Myanmar diplomacy threatens the peace initiatives of ASEAN. A UN agency reports that Iran has expanded its stockpile of uranium close to weapons-grade levels prior to an Israeli attack. Trump alleges that she is plotting against the U.S. alongside Putin and Kim during a China military parade, while Kim pledges to assist Russia with everything, and Putin expresses gratitude to North Korea for its support in the war.
Rwanda and Chinese companies have come together to introduce Africa's inaugural air taxi service. Internet connectivity in Asia and the Middle East has been interrupted due to the severing of undersea cables in the Red Sea. Stream East, recognized as the largest illegal sports streaming platform globally, has been closed down following a sting operation.
Japan's scary person rental service assists in catching unfaithful partners, recovering debts, and dealing with bullies. Tesla proposes an extraordinary $1 trillion compensation package to Elon Musk. In China, during a candid moment with Putin and Kim, she reflects on the possibility of living to 150.
Trump issues a warning to foreign companies following the detention of South Koreans in a significant U.S. raid. South Korea plans to repatriate the detained workers as the U.S. promises additional raids on employers. A large-scale immigration raid at the Hyundai megaplant in Georgia results in 475 arrests, predominantly involving Koreans. Google faces a $3.45 billion antitrust fine from the EU due to its ad-tech practices, while Trump threatens further tariffs after the EU imposes a €2.95 billion fine on Google. EU asylum applications have decreased by 23%, with a substantial decline in Syrian requests projected for 2025. In the United States, the Treasury Secretary has stated that it is essential for the U.S. and the European Union to collaborate in order to bring about.
A United Nations agency reports that postal traffic to the United States has decreased by over 80% following the termination of a trade exemption rule. CNN comments that if Trump loses his tariff lawsuit, the United States might be required to reimburse businesses with more than $200 billion. The Wall Street Journal reports that Chinese hackers posed as a leading U.S. lawmaker during trade negotiations. The U.S. is investigating a malware email aimed at these trade discussions with China.
Following the issuance of a final warning to Hamas, Trump is looking to finalize a deal concerning Gaza in the near future. The United States has imposed sanctions on Palestinians due to their request for a war crimes investigation. The United Arab Emirates has cautioned Israel that annexing the West Bank would constitute a red line that would disrupt Hamas. Trump is looking to finalize a deal concerning Gaza in the near future. The United States has imposed sanctions on Palestinians due to their request for a war crimes investigation. The United Arab Emirates has cautioned Israel that annexing the West Bank would constitute a red line that would disrupt regional integration.
Zelensky claims that Trump's summit in Alaska provided Putin with his desired outcomes. Sources indicate that the United States plans to reduce certain security funds allocated to nations adjacent to Russia. Leaders from the Pacific Islands are convening to deliberate on matters concerning security and climate change.
The Wall Street Journal reports that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the Department of Health and Human Services are planning to connect autism to the use of Tylenol during pregnancy, and to deficiencies in folate. The CEO of Pfizer has stated that Donald Trump is worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize for his role in the development of COVID vaccines. In the United States, discussions within the Justice Department about potentially banning transgender individuals from owning firearms have caused widespread outrage across the political spectrum, with the National Rifle Association expressing its opposition to the idea of prohibiting transgender Americans from gun ownership.
Trump claims U.S. launched attack on vessel with Venezuelan gang members, resulting in 11 deaths, and Rubio states Trump directed strike on suspected drug boat to convey a message. Trump enacts executive order permitting sanctions against nations illegally detaining Americans. President Trump enters order to change the Defense Department's name to the Department of War, leading to the Defense Department's efforts to act as though it is now called the War Department, and Trump asserts that the U.S. military has never fought to win since World War II.
China is considering transforming its coal-fired power plants into nuclear power stations. The United States and the United Kingdom are striving to initiate a golden age of nuclear through a series of agreements. The United States, South Korea, and Japan have commenced a joint air and naval exercise. Qatar's prime minister calls for the global community to cease double standards and ensure Israel is held responsible. The possibility of an Arab NATO emerges as Israel's airstrikes on Qatar prompt Arab militaries to consider unity, with Arab nations contemplating the revival of a plan to establish a NATO-like military alliance. According to the Washington Post, Israeli intelligence was hesitant about Netanyahu's attack on Qatar. In the United States, senators accuse the U.S. of being complicit in Israel's ethnic cleansing in Gaza. Trump reportedly insisted that Netanyahu promised not to attack Qatar again. And the Wall Street Journal notes that Trump had a heated conversation with Netanyahu regarding the Israeli strike on Qatar.
According to Axios, Lutnick claims that Trump will compel pharmaceutical companies to reduce their prices in the United States. In another development, New Mexico has become the first state to guarantee free child care for every family. The CDC has announced that COVID-19 is no longer among the top 10 causes of death.
Violent confrontations occurred in London as 110,000 individuals participated in a far-right demonstration opposing immigration. 2 weeks prior, similar clashes took place in Australia, where thousands protested against immigration, with the government associating these protests with neo-Nazi groups. A graphic video depicting Charlie Kirk's death has rapidly circulated, highlighting the diminishing influence of traditional media. Furthermore, a right-wing influencer was present alongside immigration and customs enforcement agents during raids in Chicago. Lula praises Bolsonaro's verdict, asserts to Trump that Brazil's democracy is non-negotiable, and pushes back against tariffs, emphasizing that the country's democracy is not on the table. 2 days ago, Brazil's Bolsonaro received a 27-year sentence following a significant coup plot conviction. The New York Times notes that, after Bolsonaro's conviction, Brazil already considers his amnesty. In Nepal, a youth group successfully overthrows the government and elects a new leader through a Discord poll. 6 days ago, Nepal imposed a ban on Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and 23 other social media platforms. Protests against this ban have intensified, with demonstrators setting buildings on fire, resulting in at least 19 deaths during the Gen Z protests. Nepal's prime minister resigns following the deaths at the protests caused by the social media ban. A British Army veteran is on trial facing 2 charges related to the Bloody Sunday murders.
Amazon, Google, and Microsoft have advised their employees to quickly return to the United States following the imposition of a $100,000 fee on H-1B visas by the Trump administration. This move has prompted both major tech firms and foreign governments to take action. India has expressed concerns that the increase in the H-1B visa fee could lead to disruptions in families. Previously, Trump had introduced a $100,000 fee for applicants seeking skilled worker visas. In another development, China has prohibited tech companies from purchasing NVIDIA's AI chips, citing a violation of anti-monopoly laws after an initial investigation. Bloomberg has reported that the cost of obtaining an MBA has risen, yet the return on investment has decreased.
BOJ announces ETF sales strategy, leaves possibility open for October rate increase. International investment funds significantly reduced their investments in Chinese bonds, reaching the lowest point observed since the year 2021. According to an official, India intends to sell minority stakes in approximately 6 state-owned enterprises.
Middle East Eye reports that Egypt's proposal for an Arab defense force similar to NATO was rejected at the Doha summit. Saudi Arabia has signed a mutual defense agreement with nuclear-armed Pakistan following Israel's attack on Qatar. The UK, Canada, and Australia have announced their formal recognition of Palestine, with a wave of Israel's allies expected to follow. Meanwhile, the EU has unveiled a plan to impose tariffs and sanctions on Israel in response to the outcry over the Gaza war.
Reuters reports that South Korea's President Lee has expressed concerns that the demands for U.S. investment could lead to a financial crisis, as he prepares to confront the potential financial crisis posed by these U.S. investment demands. Meanwhile, Kim Jong-un has indicated his willingness to engage in nuclear discussions with the U.S., mentioning his fond memories of a previous meeting with Trump. The EU has announced a new set of sanctions targeting Russian LNG, banks, cryptocurrency, and the shadow fleet.
Research conducted in the UK indicates that AI-generated summaries may minimize the significance of medical conditions experienced by female patients. OpenAI reports that women constitute over 50% of the users of ChatGPT. OpenAI acknowledges that its models are designed to fabricate information rather than confessing a lack of knowledge.
Trump warns of negative consequences if Afghanistan fails to return the Bagram airbase, but the Taliban dismissed Trump's attempt to reclaim it. The Washington Post suggests that a U.S. return to Bagram is not a bad idea. Meanwhile, a Syrian president visits the US for the UN General Assembly for the first time in almost 60 years. An online survey reveals that very few Japanese people desire a US base in their vicinity.
6 days prior, the Wrap reported that TikTok is in the final stages of negotiations to be acquired by Oracle, Silver Lake, and Andreessen Horowitz. According to Trump, Fox News' Rupert Murdoch and tech CEO Michael Dell might be involved in the TikTok deal. SCMP indicates that ByteDance intends to move forward with the TikTok deal while adhering to Chinese regulations, and TikTok deal gives Americans 6 of 7 board seats, Levitt says. In the United States, House Oversight and Government Reform Committee Chairman James Comer, R. Kentucky, has called for the chief executive officers of Discord, Steam, Twitch, and Reddit to appear at a full committee hearing scheduled for October 8, 2025. This hearing will focus on the radicalization of users on online forums, including cases of open incitement to politically motivated actions. Amazon and Google are under investigation by the FTC regarding their search advertising practices.
Incursions by Russian jets into Estonian airspace. 3 days prior, Estonia requested consultations with NATO following the alleged violation of its airspace by Russian jets, a claim that Russia has refuted on Friday, the 19th of September. Meanwhile, Serbia has showcased Chinese missiles during a military parade, occurring amidst heightened tensions in Europe. Russia's enigmatic Doomsday Radio has resumed transmissions, broadcasting a series of Russian names, numbers, and cryptic messages.
The postponement of the Porsche electric vehicle launch results in a $6 billion financial impact on its parent company, Volkswagen. BMW warns that the European ban on gasoline engines could potentially devastate the industry. And EU court decision permits Europe to classify nuclear and natural gas as sustainable investments.
In the previous year. Increasing heat waves linked to the production of fossil fuels and cement. Ex-Meta and cement. Ex-Meta workers claim they witnessed child abuse in virtual reality before the company halted the investigation.
SCMP notes that illicit funds from countries like Malaysia and Bangladesh are being invested in UK real estate. HSBC has launched its inaugural wealth management center in Dubai to capitalize on the flourishing investment opportunities in the UAE. The Guardian discloses that there has been a significant expansion of scam centers in Myanmar, which could potentially be holding up to 100,000 trafficked individuals. China intends to construct a naval Great Wall to defend against attacks involving swarms of thousands of drones. Following a ProPublica investigation, the Pentagon has prohibited technology vendors from employing personnel based in China. Heathrow and several major European airports are experiencing a 4th consecutive day of disruption due to a cyber attack.
A laboratory in the UAE has unveiled an open-source model designed to compete with China's DeepSeek. DeepSeek claims that its successful AI model was developed at a cost of only $294,000. Meanwhile, OpenAI has announced that its business operations are projected to incur a loss of $115 billion by the year 2029.
Toxic forever chemicals have been detected in 95% of the beers that were tested across the United States. Wildfire smoke has the potential to result in the deaths of 70,000 Americans annually by the year 2050. In the U.S., the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, has issued a fresh warning regarding the risks associated with flying while carrying lithium batteries, following numerous incidents that occurred in August. Reuters reports that the United States has issued a warning about the potential presence of concealed radios within solar-powered highway infrastructure. It has been reported that the U.S. has become the largest investor in commercial spyware. Internal documents reveal that Silicon Valley has facilitated severe mass detention and surveillance practices in China. Amnesty International reports that Pakistan is conducting surveillance on millions of individuals by tapping phones and using firewalls. A Taliban leader has prohibited the use of Wi-Fi in an Afghan province to curb what is described as immorality. According to a report, the FBI plans to classify transgender individuals as a nihilistic violent extremist threat group.
AI's positive impact on the economy is not reflected in GDP figures, with Goldman Sachs identifying this as an $115 billion oversight. Gallup reports that only 35% of people in the U.S. are satisfied with the quality of K-12 education, marking a record low. The Economist suggests that China's future is dependent on 200 million
Venezuela to criticize it as an undeclared war. The U.S. Department of Justice has taken down a study that revealed far-right extremists are responsible for significantly more violence, quietly erasing the research on the political motivations of domestic terrorists.
The Trump administration has stopped the release of a government report on hunger. In the Philippines, thousands of people have gathered to protest against corruption. Meanwhile, in the U.S. Congress, the Judiciary Panel has turned down the Democrats' attempt to issue subpoenas to banks involved in the Epstein case. The New Yorker suggests that Britain is positioning Nigel Farage as its potential future prime minister, while Trump advises Britain to deploy the military to manage its borders. Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, allegedly received $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents. Trump introduces a $1 million gold card, offering a quick visa process for affluent foreigners.
During a memorial service, Trump referred to Charlie Kirk as a martyr, while Kirk's wife extended forgiveness to the shooter. Jimmy Kimmel Live was indefinitely suspended following a joke about Charlie Kirk's killer, after a threat from the FCC. Trump announced his intention to classify the anti